March morning in 2010 when an Irish immigrant launches from his bedroom what would become the most famous payment processing app in the world, the direct competitor to PayPal. When he hit launch, not even he knew the global impact it would have. But behind it all lies the story of two brothers who never gave up and chose to go against the financial system itself. What started as a single line of code in a small room turned into Stripe, a company that would forever change the way money moves on the internet. Internet was never built to handle money. For years, starting an online business meant fighting banks, broken systems, and weeks of delays just to get paid. Most people accepted it, but two immigrant brothers from Dublin, Ireland didn't think the same. They looked at the system and quietly rebuilt it from scratch and create something completely new. And today, their company moves hundreds of billions of dollars every year and help us get paid. And you've probably used it without even knowing their story behind it. Patrick and John Collison didn't come from Silicon Valley. They grew up in a small village in Ireland, far from investors, far from tech giants, far from everything that usually builds billion-dollar companies. But from an early age, one thing was clear. They weren't just interested in technology. They were obsessed with building. By their teens, they were already coding, launching projects and startups, and thinking far beyond their environment. And that obsession would take them much further than anyone expected. Because the problem they were about to solve wasn't just frustrating, it was completely broken. In the late 2000s, the internet was growing fast. New startups were popping up everywhere, apps, marketplaces, online services, all that stuff trying to build the future, trying to build the next million-dollar company. But there was one problem hiding underneath all of it. Getting paid online was not easy. It was a nightmare. Integration could take weeks, sometimes months, and even then it barely worked. For developers, it was painful. For founders, it slowed everything down. And for most companies, it was just something they had to tolerate. No one wanted to fix it, because fixing it meant dealing with the big financial system itself, and that was a completely different game. But what most people ignored, Patrick and John couldn't stop thinking about. Patrick wasn't new to building. By the time most people were still figuring things out, he had already started a company. At just 16 years old, he launched an online business. Not a school project, not a side experiment, a real company, and it worked. A few years later, together with his brother John, they built another startup, Octomatic. This one moved even faster. They scaled it, refined it, and then sold it for millions. Just like that. No hype, no headlines, just execution. But the money wasn't the most important part. It was the pattern. They had proven something early, something most founders take years to understand. They could see broken systems and actually fix them. And once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it, because during that process, it kept running into the same wall over and over again. Getting paid online was still painfully difficult. And this time, they weren't just observing the problem, they were living it. And that's when they asked a simple question that would quietly change the internet. At some point, the question became impossible to ignore. Why is it so hard to accept payments online? Not a little annoying, not slightly complicated, completely broken. Developers had to deal with outdated APIs, confusing documentation, and systems that felt like they hadn't evolved in decades. Something as simple as charging a customer required weeks of setup. It didn't make any sense. The internet was moving fast, but the financial layer behind it was stuck in the past, in the old payments ways. So instead of working around it, they decided to rebuild it from scratch. The idea itself was almost embarrassingly simple. What if accepting payments was just a few lines of code? No paperwork, no waiting weeks, no dealing with 5 different systems just to get started. Just copy, paste, and you're all set up. That was Stripe. And on paper, it sounded obvious. But in reality, it was one of the hardest problems they could have chosen, because this wasn't just a tech problem. It meant dealing with banks, regulations, fraud systems, and an entire financial infrastructure that didn't want to change. Most people saw that and walked away, but Patrick and John didn't. They leaned in, and what they were about to face almost killed the company before it even started. Because building Stripe wasn't just difficult, it was nearly impossible. Building Stripe wasn't just writing clean code. That was the easy part. The real challenge was everything behind it. Banks didn't trust startups. Regulations were strict, slow, and unforgiving. Every country had different rules. Every transaction carried risk, fraud, chargebacks, compliance. One mistake, and everything could collapse. And the worst part, They needed the system's permission to even exist. To process payments, Stripe had to partner with banks. But banks weren't built to move fast. They were built to protect themselves. So when two young founders showed up with a new idea, the answer was usually the same. No, or worse, silence. Weeks would pass. Nothing. Emails ignored, calls delayed. And every delay meant one thing. Stripe wasn't live. No users, no revenue, no future. Most startups die here. Not because the idea is bad, but because the system is too hard to break into, and for a moment, it looked like Stripe might be one of them. But instead of trying to fight the system directly, they made a move almost no one expected, and that changed everything. They didn't go after the banks, they went after the developers. Instead of chasing banks, they went straight to the people who actually built the internet. Developers. No big launch, no massive marketing campaign. They quietly released Stripe, where developers were already paying attention. Places like Break Hacker News, online forums, small communities where early builders shared tools, and what they showed was almost shocking. Accept payments each in just a few lines of code. That was it. No complicated setup, no weeks of waiting, no friction. For the first time, it just worked. And developers noticed immediately because this wasn't just better, it was completely different. Something that used to take weeks now took minutes. So they started using it, then they started sharing it. And slowly, without any noise, Stripe began spreading to startup, to founder, like an inside secret. And before anyone outside those circles realized what was happening, Stripe was already everywhere. And that's when things got dangerous. Because growth like this doesn't stay hidden for long. At first, it didn't look like domination. There were no headlines, no aggressive expansion, no loud claims about changing the world. Just quiet growth. But behind the scenes, something bigger was happening. Startups that used Stripe started winning. Faster launches, better user experience, less friction. And in the startup world, that's everything. So naturally, more founders followed. Then bigger companies started paying attention. Shopify, Lyft, Amazon in certain parts of its infrastructure. Thousands of businesses, all running on Stripe, not because they were told to, but because it worked better than anything else. And that's when Stripe became something else entirely. Not a product, not a company, infrastructure. The kind you don't notice, the kind you don't think about, the kind that just works. Every time you pay for something online, subscribe to a service, buy from a new startup, there's a good chance Stripe is somewhere in the background, moving money silently, at scale. And the craziest part, most people have no idea. But the real impact of Stripe isn't how big it got. It's what it changed forever. Stripe didn't just make payments easier. It removed a barrier that had been slowing down the entire internet. Before Stripe, starting an online business meant dealing with systems you didn't understand, waiting on approvals, and losing momentum before you even began. After Stripe, that friction disappeared. A developer with an idea could go from nothing to accepting payment in minutes. That changed who could build. That changed how fast companies could grow. And more importantly, it changed how the internet itself evolved. Because when you remove friction, you don't just improve a system, you accelerate everything built on top of it. That's what Stripe did, quietly, no noise, no spectacle, just two immigrant brothers solving a problem most people had learned to live with. And in the process, they didn't just build a company, they built the financial layer of the internet. And the craziest part? You've probably used it today without ever realizing it.